up on my end for YouTube. I want to make sure that we are actually live on all the different platforms and stuff.
Yep. Welcome to Dodgers Dogs. We'll do this one more time. That's what I did last time, too, is I didn't wait for it to get done. Okay, so Casey Porter, Austin Brubaker here. Austin, good evening. How are you?
Doing great. How are you, Case?
Fantastic. Okay, man. Could not be any better right now. Got school getting ready to get out. Oklahoma State's heating it up on the basketball court. Going to have about a 2-week break to spend a couple of weeks with my beautiful bride of 26 years, the 2 dogs, my kid, the farm, you name it. What do you got going on here for Christmas?
It is first off, it's been a pretty good day. We're obviously in the state of Michigan. It was 40 degrees out, which felt amazing outside. I know a lot of people probably can't compare quite as much to that, but it was great outside. Christmas obviously is coming up over here in Michigan, which is super busy for me this time of year. Got family Christmas that's coming up on Saturday. Next week will be a bunch of Christmas Eve services that I've got to do some stuff for, do some worship stuff for. So I'm excited about that. And then just being able to spend some time with family should be a lot of fun as I think we as a collective of Dodgers fans kind of wait for whatever is next, and particularly with the outfield situation. It seems like it's a time of waiting at this point to see what the Dodgers are going to do. And that is where we got to come and have different fun conversations about what could be in the plans of the Los Angeles Dodgers.
100%. And hey, I know you're wanting to talk hot stove, and we're going to do that. But let me first put this in the chat here. This is the link to the Brooks Auger interview right there. So let me actually type that in. And I know, hey, this is hot stove season, and you want to talk about Stephen Kwan and Byron Buxton and Jarren Duran and those guys. But hey, it's okay to stop and check out the babies and down the farm and kind of see what we got going there and see what's up there. So hey, the Brooks Auger interview, just released that today. The next one up is Alex Makarowicz. I talked to Chris Campos tonight, and Al Minerva, I don't see in the chat yet. Al Minerva made his very first, very first, but his debut on Dodgers Daily, translating for our interview with Nicolas Cruz today. That was absolutely awesome. Jose just absolutely knocked it out of sight. So that brings me to my next point, and we're talking about prospects there. Okay, and we already have a comment from B.L. Boyd. I could not agree more about prospect hoarding. And so that's one thing that I think the Dodgers, they need to get rid of some of their glut in the minor league system. So let's redress. You can't talk about it enough. I mean, I think the Dodgers are in want everywhere else. I do think they need an outfielder. Let's address that one more time.
Okay, so first off, I'll address Brooks Auger because I had the privilege to be able to watch him during the season last year. And I remember because I was at his first professional start, which was in Great Lakes. It was the Saturday after opening day after Patrick Cookin. And the reason why I'm highlighting that is not because I'm comparing him to this pitcher. I don't think he is at the state where he can be compared to an Emmett Sheehan. But I got to see Emmett Sheehan get the exact same role and exact same start, and remember being wowed by both Brooks Auger and an Emmett Sheehan during the early portion of the season. Now, there were some struggles throughout the season with Brooks Auger, but I think what you were able to highlight is there's a lot of development that he's working on and going throughout this process. So very highly recommend checking out that interview. Super nice kid, and somebody that, man, the talent absolutely is there for Brooks Auger. It's about finding those different pieces, getting everything to be able to connect. And that's part of the process in the minor league system. And that's what, with a lot of these different guys within the system, they're going through the process of being able to develop and be able to learn and develop as they go along. So I guess with this conversation that we have, and as you had mentioned, the glut of different prospects, I think we have to define that and define which types of people should be part of the system. Where is glut okay? And where is it to a point where the Dodgers need to start trading away some of these guys? Because I think there's a difference in kind between different types of prospects and between different categories of players. And that's where we can have a discussion of, should the Dodgers be actively looking to trade some of these guys? Or is it better for the Dodgers and for the players to hold them around for the system right now, because there's still a lot of development that needs to happen. So I think we need to define terms before we go ahead and go forward.
Holy smokes. Wow. Look at this. CNAV, $100. Merry Christmas. Austin, Casey, Dodgers, Dawgs. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get through this. Definitely 50-50. No, actually, that's going to be a 75-25 probably for Austin for the incredible work that he's done. Happy holidays. By far the best Dodgers and baseball talk online, bar none. Have a wonderful holiday season, and God bless. Thank you so much. That means so much. I man, barely even made it through that. That is, that just the thanks is what makes that so awesome there. Just absolutely awesome. Thank you so much. I mean, I don't even, I'm fumbling all over myself. What an awesome thing to do.
Yeah, I don't know the words to be able to express the gratitude for that and for just for the appreciation that you have. What else can you say but a sincere thank you for not just for that, but for continuing to be part of the channel. CNAV is as important as Casey and I are, and being able to be with and interact with the crowd. So I can't thank you enough for that, for the support that you're able to have for the show, and just for and what else can I say? What else can I say but thank you and God bless and a Merry Christmas to you. That is extremely generous, and I can't thank you enough, CNAV.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, our man Al of Minerva has showed up. I'm gonna give this one an encore. Al of Minerva made his debut, and what a wonderful job he did with Nicolas Cruz today on the interview. Going to release that probably. Maybe not next. Well, maybe next week. I don't know. I got a whole bunch of them. Probably because I want to get that out for Jose and get that out there a little bit sooner. I may back one of them up and throw that out as soon as I get it edited. But hey, Al Minerva, I cannot thank you enough for interpreting our interview again today with Nicolas Cruz. What a wonderful job you did. Just absolutely fantastic. That is a huge service for Dodgers Daily. So thank you so much. How cool is that, Austin?
Yeah, no, that is an area that Casey and I just don't have the skill set for. It is something that in the past, and it's something that I've strived and want to be able to do. I'm just not completely surrounded by that. And so I think, especially with the opportunity that's able to provide for the stories that we're going to be able to tell with the people that come from, don't grow up speaking English. And that's going to open up so many different opportunities, not just for us to be able to interact with players, but for players to be able to tell their stories. And I think that's a main part of what the player interviews actually are, is the player telling their story, highlighting their story, because each one of those guys is a really good baseball player that is striving and fighting for a chance at the big league level. And now we get a chance to be able to tell some of the stories that we previously weren't able to tell. And that is so cool. And I can't thank you enough for being able to assist with that. Yeah.
And I can't tell you, Al, if you can't tell kind of by the interactions between Austin and I and the players, and it was Jose today too. I think Jose probably felt this. The one thing you feel is they trust us. They trust us to provide the proper coverage, the type of coverage that would make their mom and grandma happy, that kind of deal. And that's the goal that we set forth, the type of coverage that we can be proud of, they can be proud of. And so what a guy like Jose will do for us and did for us today is that the international players like Guillermo Zuniga, who actually did an interview just off of the questions I sent in Spanish, was kind enough to do that. I've interviewed Tyrone Lorenzo and Carlos Duran, but he had his own interpreter. And I actually used Trinidad Loaiza of Dodgers 2080 in the Tyrone Lorenzo interview. But I can't tell you if Jose wants to do this more often, the amount of trust that they will have in him, and then that just translates more trust into Dodgers Daily as well. And that trust that you get, and that creates a bond with those players, that's pretty strong. So I cannot thank you enough. It goes way beyond just providing content on YouTube or maybe a clip for social media. It goes into building trust with these guys. And I can tell you this, and they will be the first ones to tell you this, Jose, or whoever wants to listen to this. The one thing that probably international players are the most leery of is doing interviews, because they're so afraid that they're going to misinterpret, or the person doing interpretations, going to misinterpret, and they're going to look like they're saying something that isn't representative of them. So to have somebody like you, Jose, that is just super awesome at what you did and did such a great job. Incredible service for Dodgers Daily. So thank you again.
Yeah,
no doubt about that.
It goes a long way for us to be able to tell their stories, but in part of this is it's coverage, as you had mentioned, for their parents, for grandparents, for their families. With a lot of these guys, the coverage that they get is rather minimal, and especially for guys that are leaving their home to go to a new country to try to fight for an opportunity at the big league level. That is massive for them to be able to get that opportunity. So we try to highlight when they deserve and should get recognition, as Casey has mentioned in the past. When they earn it, we're going to showcase it. It doesn't matter who in the system it is.
Okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes. So let me start this argument with, if I were to ask you, what is the one position in the minor league the Dodgers have a glut?
If you're talking about in which they have a good surplus of talent, it would be the outfielders.
Yes. And what position would you say they are thin?
It would be either infield or catchers, probably more catchers than what it would be infields.
Yeah. I'd probably say third base. I mean, Jake Geloff finished last year strong, but
he was so good at the end of last year.
He was, and no doubt about that. We want to give credit where credit's due. We also want to be honest with the conversation. So if Jake or his dad, I believe his dad's name is Adam, is that may be right. Don't quote me on that. If they're watching, just know that we are super high on Jake. We think he has a tremendous amount of potential. But at this time, he's not anywhere close to being a major leaguer. Just not anywhere. I mean, I think maybe this time next year, if he strings together a good Double-A season or a good amount of time in Double-A, and he shows the adjustability to the swing and miss type of deal and continues the momentum, maybe then we can start having that conversation as far as him being a third baseman. Maybe Joe Andrew Vargas, but he's way too down the line for me to say, hey, that's an overstack or a glut or a surplus or whatever. Cody Hosey is a free agent. I don't expect him to be back. You've got Alex Freeland that could play third base. Yeah, so beyond that, I think third base is probably a position where you wouldn't mind beefing up your infield, and then maybe a little bit of first base too. So I think there are some positions. So here's where I'm going with this.
Okay.
This is where I think it's most efficient for the Dodgers. What if I could tell you, Austin, that you could trade away at areas of surplus and replenish in areas where you are thinnest? Would that not make the most amount of sense in terms of being efficient?
Okay, I would be listening, but it depends on this exact scenario of what you're trying to lay out. So I'll let you continue with the fullness of the argument that you have, then I'll respond.
Right. Okay. So we're all in total agreement. The Dodgers need one outfielder, right?
Yes.
So are you wanting the trade market or are you wanting the free agency market?
I see. It depends entirely on the number of years in free agency. With the type of player that I'm looking to upgrade, I'm not just looking for a defensive option, which means that I don't think it would be enough for the Dodgers to just go out and get Harrison Bader. He would be the short-term option. I'm not necessarily looking at him. Assuming that's going to take more than 3 years to get either a Cody Bellinger or a Kyle Tucker, that's an assumption that I'm making. It's going to take more than 3 years. I'm looking for the trade market.
Yeah, okay, trade market. So you are willing to trade for one outfielder?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
So the number is 1, correct? So let me throw some math at you. Yes. If you went and got, just to finish this conversation, and here's where I'm going to circle it back to the efficiency piece, okay? So I think you could find 2 outfielders that are both better than Teoscar Hernandez. Would you agree with that? Just don't take away the cost. Take away, hey, we're removing take away all of that conversation. Could you go find 2 guys, outfielders, that are better than Teo right now?
You could potentially find 2 outfielders better than Teo. Yes. We'll get into the numbers in just a minute.
Understood. Yeah. And you did an absolutely incredible job. I think after listening to you on Monday, I think I probably came down to, if I had to pull the trigger tomorrow, I think the guy I'd pull the trigger on would be Jarren Duran. I think that's what I came up with everything that you said on Monday. So if you went and got 2 outfielders that by the numbers, you break them down here in a minute, are both better than Teoscar Hernandez, okay? So now you're trading. Now you're trading for two, in terms of your prospect capital. But then I think what's not getting put into the equation is you're not going to trade for two outfielders and also keep Teo Hernandez. So what you're going to do with Teo Hernandez is then you're going to trade him. And so 2 minus 1 is that same number of 1 that you're willing to trade for right now. And where the efficiency piece comes in is that you can trade away some of the surplus of outfielders you have. And then whenever you get in return for Teo Hernandez, you can replenish the prospect capital you lost in areas that you're the thinnest at, like catcher, third base, maybe first base. Now, instead of having way too many at one position, not enough at the other, now you have a more balanced farm system.
All right, so let's address the heart of this issue, because we can address and debate different outfielders. I did a lot of that.
By the way, let me say this: the Dodgers aren't going to trade Teo Hernandez. They're not.
Yes,
I'm throwing it's December, whatever. I don't even think I want, after listening to you Monday, I don't even think I want the Dodgers to. Don't get me wrong. That's not really what I'm saying. I'm just saying, hey, here's a scenario where the Dodgers try to completeness. It's December the 17th, and so let's have a little fun. That's kind of what we're doing here.
Yeah. So let's address the heart of the issue, because I think a lot of this, where this comes down to, is not necessarily the Teoscar Hernandez conversation, which certainly that's another aspect of this conversation. Let's compare Teoscar Hernandez to the other outfielders, and let's see if the marginal increase in impact to go ahead and trade for two different outfielders and trade away Teoscar Hernandez is going to be worth the cost. That's a little bit of a different discussion. I think where the heart of this discussion is starting to come down to is the Dodgers and their outfield prospects. The Dodgers have a lot of really talented outfield prospects. They have 8 to 10 outfield prospects that are either among some of the most highly rated outfield prospects in the game by a lot of different publications, or produce about as well as some of the highly rated outfield prospects among the game of baseball. You're talking about guys, everybody knows the names, but it's James Tibbs, Zach Earhart, Kendall George, Zaire Hope, Josue DePaula, Eduardo Quintero, Mike Sirota, so on and so forth. Ryan Ward, your Cole Myers is among the list that produces so well. Chris Newell had a good season last year. Then you get down to the guys at the low A level that have produced really well. And there's a lot of different guys that have a lot of success. And it is obvious that all of those guys won't play for the Dodgers at some point in the future. There's just too many of those guys that are either won't make it to the big leagues, will make it to big leagues in the Dodgers, or will make it to the big leagues in another organization, or they might just not all be able to stick inside the organization. So it comes down to a question for you as a person. Do you believe that it is an issue that the Dodgers have all of these great outfield prospects within the system? And for me, and this is where I'm going to come down, and we can get into different topics and different disagreements and stuff. And this goes a little bit into the strategy, especially with the Major League Baseball draft. This is what I'm thinking of particularly. I believe you draft the best people available,
no doubt,
not necessarily by position. And when it comes to prospects, you try to get the best players you possibly can, not just an individual position, which I think you absolutely agree with that. So when it comes to these outfielders, I think it is
talking about replenishing your farm system, because whenever you trade for a major leaguer, you're trading for fit, what you need.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I'm just.
But you're saying the return just needs to be the best players you can get.
Yes. Okay. And this also comes down to with the decisions that the Dodgers have made with different trades. I think they have in part identified guys that have had a lot of talent. For example, the Gavin Lux trade. I don't think they went out there and said, give us the best outfield prospects you got. They went and identified Mike Sirota as being a really good player, and say, we want to go ahead and trade for Mike Sirota because he's a really good player, and we'll figure out how he fits into the equation going forward. I think where the issue of having a glut of an outfield prospects, and this is where perhaps you and I might have a little bit of a disagreement, because right now I don't see it as an issue unless there's one of two things happens. One, you don't have enough playing time for each one of these guys to fully be able to develop, which there is a very real conversation about Tulsa this upcoming season and whether or not they're going to have enough playing time for all the guys that are going to be at Tulsa. If you're talking about a Josue DePaula, Zaire Hope, Kendall George, all being in Tulsa next year, then you have to figure out, okay, what exactly do we do? Do we promote Zach Earhart and James Tibbs up to AAA already? Are they
Cole
ready
Myers?
for that?
There's
Cole
downstream
Myers.
problems of that. Yeah.
Yes, that is where you can have a very real problem if there is not enough playing time for each one of these guys to
look
fully
how
be
long
able
it took
to
him to
develop.
promote Josue and Zaire last year. I mean, that's why.
It's in part why, because of they had that. It also could be they were working on certain things, and that's part of the behind the scenes stuff that we don't necessarily know. And so with each one of these guys, if you have enough room to be able to play them, and this is the second key, if you do not have to add these guys to your 40-man roster, because I think in part some of the guys that the Dodgers have targeted, and this was especially apparent with them acquiring Tibbs and Earhart last year, they don't have to be added to the 40-man roster until after the 2027 season. That's exactly the prospects that the Dodgers should be going out and getting, is guys that you don't have to have on your roster.
Yes.
So as an organization, I think it becomes a question of, do we have to imminently add this guy to the 40-man roster?
Right.
And is there enough playing time for each one of these guys? If there is enough playing time for enough of these guys, the organization has to make that call, has to make that decision, and you don't have to add them to the roster. I don't see any sort of issue of having a lot of talented outfield prospects to add into the mix, especially because you don't know all of those guys are going to be major league players.
So do you think there is enough playing time for all these guys?
That if healthy, there could be a real concern. Okay, so let's go through each one of these guys.
You got to stir your wheeze at AAA too. I mean, he's a quad A player.
You have Esteury Ruiz, which I don't necessarily know how they want to utilize him. They're going to have to potentially open up some space. I don't know if because they added a guy by the name of Michael Ciani. I don't know if it's going to be either Esteury Ruiz or Michael Ciani is going to be on the roster going forward. I just don't know what the plan is. Also with Ryan Ward, if they added a pure outfielder to the mix, he would obviously be somebody that I think both you and I would agree that the Dodgers should do everything that they can to try to trade him, not because he's not talented, but because he deserves an opportunity. That's where there is an issue with this roster, because he's not getting a true and rightful opportunity at the big league level. When you're talking about some of the other players and stuff, just going down the line, it's a question of where Earhart and Tibbs start. Tibbs has a little bit of versatility. I think he played some first base last year at Tulsa, so perhaps there could be a little bit of opportunity with him, but I don't know if they want him playing exclusively first base. Earhart, depending on where they start, if they start at AAA, that really starts to clear up some of the gap, because then you would have DePaula, you would have Hope, you would have KG, you could potentially have a Cole Myers being designated hitter type guy that could be added to the mix. Trying to figure out some additional playing time potentially for a Damon Keith would be potentially something that they would have to work out. Chris Newell would probably be up at the AAA level, given he had an above average season last year, perhaps pushing him for development. Down at Great Lakes, I think Quintero probably starts the season in Great Lakes again. Sirota, it depends on how he's coming back from injury. He could potentially start just to buy some time for some of the other guys to be able to continue for development, maybe start at Great Lakes, and then once maybe Earhart is ready or Tibbs is ready, potentially move up and then go forward from there. So there's a lot of different options that the Dodgers could go down. The question is, how do the Dodgers actually map it out? Because that's what's going to be the most important for them.
100%. So that's just kind of my the 2 minus 1 equals 1. So the argument to that, the rebuttal to that would be, so this is the period of time to where these guys are the most valuable. Okay, so you just went through the fact that you don't have to put them on the 40-man, which is a very valuable thing. Okay, and another organization is going to have plenty of runway for a Mike Sirota or a Zaire Hope or a Josue De Paula or a James Tibbs III or whatever. So as soon as you butt one of these players up to, hey, you have to put them on the 40-man or they're eligible for the Rule 5, do they add or do they subtract value?
Perhaps subtract a little bit, but I don't think it's substantial enough until they start utilizing some of their options. I mean, and especially with, it depends on how their development process actually goes, because when you're a player and with as much talent as each one of these guys are, they're still prospects, but they're also still unproven baseball players. If they start having a little bit of success at the upper levels of the minor league system, they're going to improve their actual value. And so I don't think it's just a sure thing. They have the most value that they possibly can right now, so you need to be able to capitalize on their value, because I think some of these guys can increase their value as they go up and as they continue to develop. But they certainly have value to the Dodgers right now. I think the value of not being on the roster is certainly valuable to a lot of major league teams.
That same value would translate to the other organization too, though, is what I'm saying.
It certainly would translate to a lot of other organizations. I just don't think there's going to be a dramatic dip in value unless there is a dip in production, which is something that is very difficult to be able to predict.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the value thing is I mean, it's a tough deal, because I mean, I think the Dodgers, a lot of times they sit on guys that get into a log jam and then they lose value as they go, and that I just don't think that's a very efficient way to go. And so, one for one, who is going to have more prospect pull, Jarren Duran or Teo Hernandez?
Oh, Jarren Duran is going to demand more prospects in a trade than if you were to trade at Teoscar Hernandez.
So in a trade scenario, who would be a similar prospect haul?
Okay, so is this a question of if the Dodgers were to trade for Jarren Duran, what would be the prospect
if they wanted to
haul?
release someone, they wanted to get rid of their glut of their outfielders and try to balance out their. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying this is a way that you could balance out your and guarantee that you maximize the value of all of these outfielders when they're at their peak value, and go get some other great players that aren't outfielders for Teo Hernandez. It's just an option. It's just a war room question where you go, hey, well, this is a scenario here, that kind of deal. Yeah. So what is the type of outfielder that would get the same kind of prospect haul as Teo Hernandez?
That the Dodgers have in their system right now, or just kind of in general?
No, that they would go get. This is the fundamental question here. This is the yes or no. Okay?
Because we are trying to evaluate the value that Teoscar Hernandez provides, and it's a difficult thing because there is some deferrals in Teoscar Hernandez contract, which certainly brings down what would have been a $22 million per year type of contract down to maybe more into the $17-18 million a year range. But then it becomes an evaluation for other teams of how do you view Teoscar Hernandez as a player and how you're utilizing him. Because let's be fair, 2 of the past 3 years, he's been slightly above league average as a hitter. 107 in 2023, 102 last year. He had a really good season in 2024 where he was about 30% better than league average. But 2 of the past 3 years haven't necessarily been the greatest for him. And last year, because of his defense, he only put up 0.6 Fangraphs WAR, which a lot of teams can get that exact same value for somebody who's making the league minimum. Yeah. So when you're talking about negotiations and trade for Teoscar Hernandez, I don't think his trade value is anywhere close to a lot of the other outfielders that are on the market. I think you could potentially, if another team views Teoscar Hernandez with a lot of value, and again, this is not because Teoscar Hernandez is not a good player. This is because of the price that Teoscar Hernandez is getting paid, and because he is aging at this point. And when you're thinking about buying an aging player for the price that he has, you don't necessarily want to give up a lot of your resources, which for a lot of other teams is a lot more limited. But I think you're potentially talking about, if you were to trade a Teoscar Hernandez, perhaps just about some of the names that have been rumored out there, I think it's going to be a lot closer to the trade package of which it would cost the Dodgers to go out and get somebody like a Jake Myers from Houston than what it would be to anywhere close to the Jarren Durans, to the Byron Buxton, to the Brendan Donovan, or maybe even it's probably going to be even less than what it would take to get somebody like a Lars Nootbaar too. Just from my estimation, estimation, perhaps you could say it's probably fairly similar, but that would be the closest out of the outfield bunch besides Jake Myers. All of this to say is I'm not anticipating the trade value for Teoscar Hernandez to necessarily be that great for other teams because of his age, because of the down season that he had, and because of the price that it's going to take to be able to pay Teoscar Hernandez for the next couple of seasons, which certainly is down from what it would have been if there was no deferrals.
So between the fact that Teo Hernandez is going to most likely, now you never know, most likely draw quite a bit less trade value than any other second outfielder the Dodgers might want to go get. It's not going to be close to a Jared. It's going to be somebody that the Dodgers fans and the Dodgers themselves are going to want Teo more than the guy that's going to be similar in trade value. I think that is the I think that's the determining factor there. And then also, we already know that Teo can come up in the clutch. We already know that Teo hits home runs. This team needs Teo to hit home runs. And then also, rumor has it he's lost weight. So I wanted to circle back around to this conversation because, and I think most Dodgers fans are there, but it's out there. This is this is how you go full circle in a conversation about Teo, and you start getting maybe some trade rumors out there like there was a couple of weeks ago. You run through all these scenarios with a guy like Austin that has all of these predictive measures that are pretty damn good. I mean, if you look at most of the predictive, are they perfect? No, but predictive measures actually are probably substantially better than past performances for guys that are on the fringe in terms of what is a guy going to do. So you go through all those, and then you come at the end of the day and you go, well, I'd rather have Teo than any of these other guys that's anywhere as close to his value. Screw that. That's a slam dunk. Teo, go lose whatever weight you're going to lose. Let's get better at defense, and let's freaking go. Now, what do we talk about for the rest of the offseason?
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this. Just because I know not everybody had the chance to be able to watch the show on Monday, so I want to just do like a quick recap of this, because trading Teoscar Hernandez is not the only way in which you can bridge some of the depth that you have in the system. If, for example, with the outfield situation,
that's my biggest point, is to balance the depth.
Okay.
That's a big point.
So this is going to be my response to that, because you don't have to trade Teoscar Hernandez to address the depth issue of what they have. I don't think it is an issue unless the Dodgers look at it and say, I have no idea how to get each one of these guys playing times. If that is the case, you know what the Dodgers can do? It does not have to be a major league player for a prospect trade. They can trade some of these prospects for other prospects that they have identified within the system if they have somebody in mind. For example, as you had mentioned, a third base or catcher. If they want to balance it out and just say, we don't have enough room for each one of these guys to get playing time, that is going to be an issue for their development. It's not that they are ready for the big leagues. None of them are ready for the big leagues quite yet. They very well are still part of the system. But to trade potentially one of these guys for another position of need, I think that turns into a little bit more of a prospect for prospect type of trade, as opposed to a Teoscar Hernandez type
I ain't
of
trading
trade.
none of them outfielders for another prospect. Nope. No way.
Okay, so but that is essentially what you would be doing if, for example, you were to trade Teoscar Hernandez away for additional prospects, but then trade some of these guys for additional outfielders. You would.
I'm upgrading my major league roster with what I'm doing. In my opinion, I'm up. What I'm thinking I'm doing. It never works. You never know. I mean, Michael Conforto was terrible. Tanner Scott was terrible. That kind of deal. But my reason for it I would be saying I'm upgrading my major league roster. I'm using the glut of my talent in the minor league system to upgrade my major league roster to give me the best chance to win next year, while then also balancing out the depth in my minor league system.
Yes, and
the only hang up for me is that there's nobody in that category that you're going to get an equal one-for-one trade value package with that's as good, or that you actually can upgrade your major league roster with Teo, because he's going to be less expensive than the guys that actually are an upgrade. That's the deal breaker. That's what I'm saying.
Yep. And what I'm trying to say is the avenue, if this was such an issue, for example, if they were to trade for an additional outfielder and they still felt like this was an issue, the outfield would be, especially at Tulsa this upcoming season. I don't think it's going to be any secret. Tulsa's outfield is going to be phenomenal this next year. And for people in Tulsa, you're going to have so much fun being able to watch each one of those guys within the system. If they, after they get an outfielder, adding two Teoscar Hernandez and Amy Pages to the mix.
You just went there like not if, like you just went there like they're going to get an outfielder. Oh, okay.
It is my expectation that the Dodgers are going to add an offensive player. So when the Dodgers add an outfielder to the mix, if it is something where the Dodgers still feel like they have too many outfielders as part of their system, that is when you can trust the Dodgers scouting department and potentially look, how do we go ahead and do right by the guys in the system? Perhaps we can identify somebody that perhaps might be undervalued by another organization that we think is really going to succeed, and potentially trading one of those outfielders for an additional prospect, a prospect outfielder for a prospect other position area of need. That could be a situation that the Dodgers could see themselves. It does not happen very often because a lot of this comes with risk when going ahead and trading for each one of these guys, but that's where you trust the Dodgers scouting department. This Dodgers scouting department found them in trades, guys like Mike Sirota. It found them in Adam Serenowski from Dayton. It found them a Zaire Hope and a Jackson Ferris. So I would trust the Dodgers scouting department if they identify talent and if that is a direction that the Dodgers want to go down. Now, when it comes to this entire situation with Teoscar Hernandez, the reason why I don't believe this is going to be something that the Dodgers go down has two parts. One, it's about the fit with Teoscar Hernandez in LA. He has become a leader and a mentor for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and trading somebody like that, it has to come from a very significant upgrade, especially with what he means.
That was my whole point. Yes.
Yep. And as an offensive unit, I think we are throwing around a lot of different names without putting realistic expectations to each one of those names, which is why I did the show on Monday, because I wanted to identify what the realistic expectations for each one of these guys are. And when looking at some of the numbers, just looking at the projection systems for each one of these guys through Fangraphs. Before, I think we've got some super chats that we have to go over again. So we'll get into that in just a second. But I just want you to go to the early projections for some of these guys. First, I'll start off with Teoscar Hernandez. Teoscar Hernandez is projected to be a 112 WRC plus player. Above league average, better than what he was last year. Not quite to the extent of what he was in 2024. Seems relatively accurate. Here are some of the other WRC plus for some of the other guys that we talk about quite a bit. Byron Buxton, currently projected to be a 119 WRC plus player, just 7 points higher than a Teoscar Hernandez as an offensive player. Byron Buxton, yes. Jaron Duran.
Yeah, but how about the defense?
And that is where there can absolutely be a little bit of a difference of the argument. Absolutely. And I'm not denying that. I'm trying to give you realistic expectations of the offense right now before we go into the defensive component and we weigh that in comparison to whether the cost is going to be worth it for Teoscar Hernandez. So Teoscar Hernandez next year projected about a 112 WRC plus early models. Obviously not going to be entirely accurate, but shows you within the ballpark. But Byron Buxton, somebody that we might have the expectation of being a 30 to 40% above league average type of player. There's expectation, according to some of the models, that he's going to dip down to maybe about 20% above league average, 119 WRC plus. Jaron Duran, the projection models don't necessarily like him. They have him at about a 107 WRC plus. Brendan Donovan, 118. Cody Bellinger, 116. Bo Bichette, 121. Lars Nootbaar, 115. Stephen Kwan, 113. The reason why I'm showcasing these is because the difference in offensive production, yes, there's going to be a difference in defensive production, but the difference in offensive production between Teoscar Hernandez and a lot of these guys, projection-wise going into this upcoming season, I don't think is going to be vastly different from each other. So then it becomes a question of how all in do you want to go and how much of a need is the defensive upgrade going to be versus the weight of what that's going to be culture-wise for the Los Angeles Dodgers, fit-wise, and long-term cost it's going to take to be able to acquire. Because if you're going to go out and trade for two different outfielders and expect to get a similar for one of the prospects type of return for Teoscar Hernandez, I'm not seeing that type of expectation going into reality for it. So just want to go through a little bit in detail what the projection models really show. You can absolutely disagree with some of those, but that shows you around the ballpark of where things stand right now. Yeah.
So do you think the Dodgers need a second baseman?
So
I mean, you got Rojas and you got a swingman in Edmund, but I just worry. I mean, both guys that are, Rojas a little older, both guys that are injury prone. So you're just one random Tuesday away from not being able to use Tommy Edman the way that you want to, and that kind of deal. I mean, you got Hassan Kim. Nobody knows how he's going to get handled, but Where are you at second base? I mean, I know if you had your druthers, you probably would get Brendan Donovan, and that would solve that whole entire issue.
Yep.
Right. But where are you at with that?
So for me, I've been a big advocate for the Dodgers to go out and acquire Brendan Donovan. The one issue that doesn't entirely fix is he's more of a league average defender. That's not going to dramatically improve the defense that you have, but it is going to provide you a solution potentially at second base, especially against right-handed pitching. Brendan Donovan is phenomenal against right-handed pitching. He also has the ability to go out and play in the outfield as well. But for me, I'm looking for the Dodgers, and perhaps this could be I'm not thinking big like the Dodgers are, but I'm just looking for the Dodgers to add either a outfielder or a second baseman, but primarily, and this is the big key for me. I want somebody that's going to hit against right-handed pitching really well, because I think the Dodgers can put up a lineup that can hit against lefties really well. You mentioned the two guys that are out there at second base, Tommy Edman and Miguel Rojas. Both of them dominate against left-handed pitching. It's against righties where the Dodgers could potentially have some issues. And if you get an outfielder or a second baseman that's able to play and hit well against right-handed pitching, I think what that's going to potentially do is that's going to create opportunities at second base for some of the guys like you had mentioned, like a Ha-Seong Kim or an Alex Freeland, to play a lot against righties, with always knowing that you have the fallback of Miguel Rojas and a Tommy Edman to go to versus right-handed pitching. But it provides an avenue for you to get additional plate appearances for some of your young guys, to be able to see if these guys are going to be key parts of the future going forward, or potential parts of the future going forward, because I don't know what a Alex Freeland or a Ha-Seong Kim are at the major league level. I can't make that determination based off 100 plate appearances. Nobody can, which means that you need to provide opportunities for them to be able to grow.
That's my biggest argument for Ha-Seong Kim, is that you'll never know until you put him out there. My argument is not that he's the best player to put there right now. My argument is that he has the best upside, and the only way he's ever going to reach that upside is through major league at-bats. That's my argument for him.
Yep. And so for me, I'm not particularly looking for somebody at second base. My primary look is for somebody that can play the outfield. But if it is somebody that I find that can play either second base or the outfield, that opens up options for a Ryan Ward to be able to fight for a roster spot. So if spring training comes, and this entirely resolves around Brendan Donovan, because nobody else fits the exact same solution that we have. We can get into a conversation about Bichette in a second, because I'm sure with a conversation about second base, a lot of people are going to be arguing.
He's not as good
Bichette
on offense as I thought he would. But before you do that, I don't want this to get away from us. This is too important. I don't mean to cut you off here.
Yep.
Carlos Garcia, $1.99. Do you think we will get Kyle Tucker or Cody Bellinger? I don't think the Dodgers will end up with either, but.
Yeah, it is for me. I don't see it, just because I think, and this is the difficult part, because you're trying to piece through a lot of different rumors. With Bellinger, I think there's probably going to be either one of the New York teams that's going to give him the years that the Dodgers are not comfortable with. For me,
agreed.
I'm not comfortable with giving Bellinger more than 3 years, and that is because of the concerns that I have with Bellinger for the power output, his barrel percentage and hard hit percentage are not great. There's a vast difference between his actual results versus his expected results, particularly with his WOBA versus ex-WOBA. The past 3 seasons, you combine all those numbers.
He swung a magic wand.
He has dramatically outperformed what was expected.
What you call that in baseball.
Which means that I am expecting some regression for Cody Bellinger, and I don't know how he's going to handle returning back to Los Angeles, which means I'm not comfortable giving him more than 3 years. I would expect the Dodgers to be in a somewhat similar boat as I am, and if that is the case, could potentially see either the Mets, because they missed out on several different free agents, and because they are at least at this point in the offseason, somebody that, man, they need to start making some moves to dramatically increase their lineup, or the Yankees, in which Bellinger played a key role to that team. I think one of those teams is likely to give him more than 3 years, potentially 4 or 5 years. If that is the case, I don't think the Dodgers go to that length to go out and get a Cody Bellinger. And then with Kyle Tucker, the interesting thing about that is you could potentially look at one of those other New York teams. You're also looking at potentially Toronto being in the mix for a Kyle Tucker. Is Toronto going to go out and get both Bichette and a Kyle Tucker? I don't think it's going to be both. If Toronto goes out and signs Bichette, I think that opens up potentially an opportunity for the Dodgers to go up to Kyle Tucker and say, look, I don't think you're going to get the long-term deal that you're seeking. Why don't you sign with us for a short-term deal with a lot of different opt-outs? You can re-enter free agency if you want. You can make a ton of money and you can win a World Series championship. I just don't see that. I think this percentage chance of that is still relatively low, so I'm not expecting either one of them, but I think the Dodgers are waiting at least a little bit, and this is in part why the Dodgers are taking some time, because they're waiting to see if they can capitalize on either of them.
Yep. See if Kyle Tucker if they can get in the ballpark. So what happened with Edwin Diaz is he got in the ballpark. Yes. They did not want to pay what they paid for Edwin Diaz. Trust me. Yes. They didn't want to sign the most lucrative contract in the history of time for a reliever. That's not what they wanted to do. But he got into their ballpark in at least some type of fashion or form, and in some type of category, which was the length in years, in 3 years. And so that brings us to the possibility of Kyle Tucker, of which, if you're going to give Edwin Diaz the largest, most lucrative monetary contract in the history of relievers, like the Dodgers did in terms of AAV, because he matched the amount of years that you wanted to go, and then you also had deferrals, then who's to say Kyle Tucker wouldn't do that either? That is the ball game for the Dodgers. Will Kyle Tucker come back to 4, maybe 5 years with some astronomically stupid, insane, crazy annual value on his contract, like I know Show's saying right here, 4 for $200, which, okay, I mean, it's the Ohtani economy. It's all about years, which creates flexibility within the roster. I am in agreement with Showtime if Kyle Tucker will take the heavy payday, lots of money up front for the shorter years. The Dodgers, I think, will do that for him, because you've done a very great job doing this all offseason, Austin. You have made it very clear there is no one really close to Kyle Tucker in terms of offense.
No, there's
no
one.
Really, I think if you go get an outfielder, you're going and getting to upgrade your offense over Michael Conforto. That's why they got Conforto.
Yes, and there is no doubt within this market, Kyle Tucker is the best offensive option that the Dodgers could potentially go out and get. I mean, the numbers that he's put up are ridiculous year after year. Projected 136, but the past 3 years combined, 146 WRC plus. These are his numbers: 278, 380 on base percentage, gets on base a ton, doesn't strike out, sub 15% strikeout percentage the past 3 years, and a 511 slugging with underlying metrics that back up how good he is. He's good against righties. He's good against lefties. There's a reason why Kyle Tucker is or was projected to get paid as much as he was. And that is because Kyle Tucker is great at the game of baseball and great at being able to mash. You compare his numbers, his 146 WRC plus, to the other options that the Dodgers could potentially trade for. It's not even comparison. Kyle Tucker is the best option that the Dodgers could potentially go out and get. And if he gets in within the years range that the Dodgers are looking for, which I think the only reason why the Dodgers haven't been all in with Kyle Tucker with the Ohtani economy that they have is because it's going to cost significant years onto his deal that has long-term risks for this roster that already has a lot of long-term years. As you get further along down that age gap, a lot of those players aren't going to be performing quite as well. But if they can get it to be as Showtime had mentioned, a ridiculous 4-year, $200 million contract, if it is just about the money,
yes,
the Dodgers are going to sign up for that every single day because of the amount of money that they have. And then there's not going to be any sort of long-term risk. And then you get the best of both worlds. You get the best player potentially available while not limiting yourself long-term for the opportunity and cost and for the aging that players have. So if that's the deal that the Dodgers could get Kyle Tucker to be able to sign, I think the Dodgers jump all over that. And I think that's in part while they're waiting right now.
Absolutely. That's the waiting game, no doubt. Or they could just wait it out. They don't have to get an outfielder. They're going to win the World Series. If everything goes correct and the Dodgers play to their capabilities and play like they're supposed to, they're going to win the World Series again as the roster sits right now. They don't have to go get an outfielder. I say need. They could use a bat. I mean, it'd be nice to get one, but they don't need it. It's still... Edwin Diaz was a need to me more than an outfielder was. We had that conversation. I said from day one, you got to get the closer first. Outfielder, if it falls into your lap, we'll see if that happens. We have another $50 super chat from CNAB again. Hey, CNAB's going to go watch his old friend who was his warm-up buddy playing an alumni game at UCLA, and Doc Roberts is always at those games, and he's going to try to approach Doc and see if he can get an interview for Dodgers Daily with Dave Roberts. Wouldn't that be cool?
Dude,
CNAB is badass, by the way.
You know what we might need to do? We might need to send CNAB some official merch, so then when he goes and asks that question, he's got some official merch and stuff on. But CNAB, I can't thank you enough for all of that and for the support that you're able to showcase. That it is humbling for each one of us, and it truly is from the bottom of our hearts. So again, Merry Christmas. I hope that you're able to just interact, even if it's not something that leads to any sort of opportunities that we have, because that would be the privilege of a lifetime to be able to talk to Doc here at Dodger Stocks, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. But just being able to have a good interaction with him, for you, that is something that I truly hope for yourself, because you obviously a huge Dodgers fan and deserve it.
Yeah. So the Bichette thing, it was interesting. I mean, the kind of the numbers you went over Monday is, I think fans think he's a better offensive player than he actually is. And then whenever you kind of put that into the equation with the type of not great defense he plays, is there a certain amount of overrating of Bichette, or am I way off on that?
So it's really weird with Bichette, because you have a season that was a little bit more of an outlier season for him, which was his 2024 season. He had a 70 WRC plus. So certainly some of the projection models and some of the numbers that I put out there are a little bit skewed by that. But I want to remind people what type of player that he has been in the past, and then just talk about the fullness of him as an overall player. So when talking about a Bichette, let me get the numbers right here.
And he's going to be a second baseman, not a shortstop, and then probably a third baseman. So he's a big need. I think the Dodgers need an everyday second baseman. Then I think they need an eventual replacement for Max Muncy. So I think he has the right fit for the Dodgers. Keep that in mind too.
Okay, so these are his WRC plus numbers since 2021, not including the 2020 season. Since 2021, he plays pretty regularly. 2021, 122. 2022, 129, 29% above league average. 23, 124. 2024, he had a 70 WRC plus, and then last year he had a 134 WRC plus. Big rebound with a Bichette, and this is what you have to understand with him as an offensive player. He's not somebody that's going to walk a whole lot. His walk percentage is going to be similar to guys like a Teoscar Hernandez and an Andy Pages. He swings the bat, and because he swings the bat, he's talking about a 17-ish percent strikeout percentage. You're talking about a player that gets a lot of his production by his ability to hit for average. That is where Bichette's true value is able to come.
The Dodgers need that.
And the Dodgers have been looking for that. And that is somebody that is able to succeed really well with that. Here are going to be some of the warning signs with Bichette, and this is entirely dependent on the term and length of the deal that he's able to provide, because with Bichette, he has been a shortstop his entire career at the major league level. If he is looking for free agency, and I know he's expecting to go out and play different positions, but if you're talking about positions that require the highest cost to be able to acquire, that's shortstops. It's very possible that his market could be at least influenced, or at least Bichette could be looking for shortstop dollars when he defensively is not a good shortstop at all. Defensively, he has been one of the worst shortstops in the game of baseball. So it becomes a question. And this is a serious unknown for a lot of major league clubs, because Bichette's been an exclusively shortstop player. Is he going to be a good defender at second base or third base? I have no idea, because he's not been a good shortstop. Perhaps he could be a lot better and probably be at least a little bit better at the second base position or at the third base position, but we don't know. He also has been somebody that obviously last year was injured during the course of the World Series, injured during portions of the World Series, has dealt with some injuries as well. I believe the 2024 season missed half of the season because of injuries. If injuries continue to pile up for a Bo Bichette? Is that going to not only affect his defense, which already is not good at all, and the Dodgers, I think, need some people that can at least be average defenders out there? Is it going to be something that is going to start impacting his offense as well? And with Bo Bichette, he's not somebody that is entirely driven by power. He's got some decent power, but a lot of his production offensively mainly comes from his ability just to make a lot of consistent contact. Is that going to be something that's going to decrease as he ages? And especially with the player that is driven by his offense. And this comes from you as an organization, as a team. Can you go out and spend long-term years for somebody that is exclusively driven by their offense when you know that their defense isn't going to be that good? It's the exact conversation that we potentially could have with a Teoscar Hernandez that you could potentially see going forward, just thinking of warning signs down the road with Bo Bichette. If Bo Bichette does not hit, he's not going to be a valuable player on your team. So the question mark is just how much do you believe in his bat, and for how long can you believe in his bat?
See, I would push back, and I would say I understand he's not a great defender, but the positions that he plays, I think, adds value. Is Max Muncy a great defender?
He's not a great defender, no.
Right. And so I think the fact that he could be Max Muncy's replacement, which is not, the Dodgers I don't even think they've thought who that guy would be. I think maybe Alex Friedman is an idea, right? But I don't think the Dodgers even thought. I think the fact that he could be Max Muncy's eventual replacement and kind of solve that issue, and then also solve the issue of who's the everyday second baseman this year and killed two birds with one stone defensively. I think by that quantity, I think that adds a little bit of quality in terms of value for the Dodgers defensively, even though specifically he's not a great defender.
Okay, so this actually comes down to a little bit of a fascinating conversation that we have, because there's a vast difference in the type of player that Bo Bichette is and in Max Muncy is. So let's assume that Bo Bichette is not going to be the greatest defender. Just from the numbers that we have from the shortstop position, I'm just going to assume that he's going to be a below average second baseman or third baseman. You can disagree with that. I have no numbers to go off of based of what he had done at shortstop. So let's assume that he plays the defensive relatively around what Max Muncy is able to produce defensively at the third base position. How Bo Bichette is able to succeed on offense is very different than what Max Muncy is. Max Muncy is driven by his ability to draw walks and hit for power. Bo Bichette, it does not draw a whole lot of walks and is driven by his ability to go ahead and hit for average. The question for the Dodgers, and especially with somebody who is, both of them, fairly injury prone, or at least have dealt with a lot of injuries. I think that's a better terminology for it. They've dealt with injuries over the course of recent years. How well is that going to age, or at least the profile of offense going to age as they go ahead and get older? And I have concerns with players long-term, with guys that don't walk and rely exclusively on their bats. If it is something where, man, they have to be able to hit. And Bo Bichette, let's look at his walk percentage.
That's why Muncy has aged, is because even when he's not hitting, he does walk. It's the exact opposite effect.
And this is past 5 years for Bo Bichette. His walk percentage, 5.8, 5.9, 4.5, 6%, 6.4%. It is not to the degree where you can look at it and to where, man, if the batted ball luck or his bat speed declines, or if there's things that don't necessarily work out, that you could just say, well, he's going to get on base no matter what, and it's going to provide at least some level of stability.
Exactly right.
There is a lot of risk with the profile that Bo Bichette has, whereas with somebody like Max Muncy, there is a little bit more certainty because he's going to take some bases. And even though there's going to be stretches where he's not going to be hitting home runs, there's going to be stretches where he's able to produce the offense and at least provide a baseline level of offense. And with Bo Bichette, if he was at least a league average defender, if I knew he was going to be at least a league average defender, I think I would be a lot more comfortable because he would be able to provide value in that aspect. But because he's not a good defender, and because there's not a baseline level of walks, I have very serious concerns, especially with him already dealing with a lot of injuries, how the offensive profile is going to age long term. And this is, again, entirely dependent on the years. If you're talking about the next 2 to 3 years, absolutely, I feel comfortable and think Bo Bichette is going to be one of the best options out there. But if we're talking about 5-6 years down the road, like the long-term fit that you would hope that Bo Bichette would be, I have some question marks about it, and very serious question marks that I don't think can be ignored.
Yeah. But we don't have a whole lot of data of him at second base.
We have only the World Series.
Yeah, and he played well. He did good.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he's not going to be playing shortstop. Shortstop's where you're drawing all your defensive data from. He's going to be playing second base and third base.
Yep, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
You have disagreements and think he's going to be a good second baseman.
There's a lot of indecision there for that type of commitment. That's the argument to make.
For a 7-year, potentially $200 million contract.
Lots of indecision.
You're talking about a 7-game sample size at second base.
Lots of risk with guys like you that crunch the numbers. Risk is like, ugh. Like your whole job of crunching numbers is to remove hey, nothing's perfect. Nothing always works. But what you do whenever you use analytics is that you try to reduce the most amount of risk that you possibly can, and then you take your chances from there.
Yep,
that's kind of what you're doing with this Bichette deal.
I'm trying to find where there's going to be certainty for players and predictability. That's what I'm trying to do. Try to find some predictability for each one of these guys. And Bichette, been a phenomenal offensive player in the game of baseball and certainly has provided a lot of value and would make a great addition if he was on the Los Angeles Dodgers for this next year. I just don't know long term how that's going to work out with what he has and which just some of the concerns that I have. I also don't necessarily love the long-term contract type of deals to guys that don't walk just because of the variability that doesn't have. And it's going back to a couple of years when we had conversations about Luis Robert Jr. And the reason why I didn't want him is because I had question marks about his ability to draw walks.
Neither one of us. We're going to get into the Mookie Betts conversation before we get out of here. We have a question from JC Gonzalez. Casey, do you think the A's would trade a player like Rooker? If so, do you think he's worth trading for? I'm going to pass that one to you, Austin.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and pull up some of the numbers. So that is something that I don't necessarily think is going to be part of the equation for the Dodgers and for the Oakland Athletics. And I don't necessarily know if I'm still going on. I'm assuming I am. My computer's being all glitchy and stuff.
Yeah, I see you.
Okay, cool. So my computer's all glitchy and stuff, so I'm going to have to look this up on my phone.
Is Dodgers Day going to have to buy you a new computer?
I mean, it would be sweet if we did, but I don't think that's something that we need to do necessarily at this point. That'll be something that I have. Just looking at Brent Rooker's numbers. I mean, he's a really good player, especially on the offensive side. Look at the past 3 years, 126, 164, and 122 WRC plus. That 2024 season was phenomenal. Yeah. Here's the biggest thing about Brent Rooker is he's more of a designated hitter at this point. His fielding is just not to the degree of what the Dodgers are looking for, and especially if they already have a Teoscar Hernandez as part of the equation in the outfield, I don't think they're going to be looking for somebody like.
Do the Dodgers already have a DH?
They do have a DH, and he's pretty good. But defensive runs saved, outs above average for the amount of time that he's playing, all in the negative. You look at with what they do, just hasn't been great for Brent Rooker long term. So I don't think he's an option at this point, just because I don't think the A's are looking to trade him yet, and because he fits a little bit more as a designated hitter.
Okay, so this is going to be my conversation about Mookie, and I was very vocal last year that I thought I was not in favor of Mookie moving to shortstop, because I point blank said my reason was I thought it would affect his offense because he was going to have to inject it's not just during the games. He's going to have to put in more extra work before the games, and he's getting older, and that extra work is going to catch up with him. Okay, it's very rare in life that I'm right, but I really feel like I was 100% correct in that assessment, that the just the strain of shortstop, the amount of extra work before games that defensively he was going to have to put in was going to affect his offense, because it's just physically exhausting, even if you're Mookie Betts. And by the time it's about July, you're very exhausted. So then I think about halfway through, he kind of went, you know what? Well, I've had enough reps at this point. I think he backed off a little bit, gave his body a chance to recover, maybe his brain a chance to recover a little bit, and had a little bit of a rebound, not much. So I will say this. I don't think he surprised anybody the way he played defense. Never bet against Mookie Betts. If he puts his mind to something, he's going to get it done, whether that be bowl or probably golf or whatever. it is. So this is my comment about Mookie Betts in 2026. I think it's like whenever you're young and you do something and it's just 24 hours a day in your mind, and you're just spending every second of your day trying to get better at it. You're addicted to it. You're obsessed. That's what the new challenge of shortstop was for Mookie Betts. It was an obsession. It was, by God, people don't think I can do this. I'm going to show them. And I'm just telling you, he was obsessed with becoming the best shortstop in the game, which defensively he did a pretty darn good job of getting himself up there with. So I think that element is out the window. Now, Mookie Betts always wants to be as good as he possibly can. But I think the second go around, all that obsession, all that extra, I got to get here at 2 o'clock and do all this so I can get all my rep, I think that's going to go away. I think that part of it's going to relax. I think he's going to get into a routine that's going to maximize his efficiency on the field versus how much am I exhausting my body for the 6-month marathon. And I think he's going to understand the balance of what his body can do to be at the peak value that he can be offensively too. So I think the routine's going to be different. I think the approach is going to be different. And because of that, do I think Mookie Betts is going to snap right back to what he was 2 years ago? Probably not, just because shortstop, even if you don't put any pregame work in, is still a very demanding position. And he's 2 years older, by the way. But I do think he's going to bounce back from what he was last year substantially. That's where I'm at on Mookie Betts.
Yeah, so first off, Mookie Betts was phenomenal defensively last year. I think it was 17 defensive runs saved. That's one of the best marks for a shortstop in the game of baseball last year. That absolutely was something that Mookie Betts turned something that was a doubt, that he put himself in that position for the season prior, in the 2024 season, after Gavin Lux wasn't able to play the shortstop position. He took a risk playing the shortstop position then, and then came back in 2025 and absolutely showed that Mookie Betts can do practically anything on the baseball field. He was phenomenal defensively. Where the question mark is, and this is what we're going to have to wait and see in 2026, is how much is the defensive position at shortstop, which is one of the most demanding positions on the baseball field. I think only probably behind the catching position, one of the most demanding positions on the baseball field. How much could that be taken away from his offense, and how more are you going to be balancing the two? So I think this is actually a pretty big year just to see where things are at with Mookie Betts. He no doubt is going to be the shortstop for this team, because he proved that defensively he can be among the best defensive shortstops in the game of baseball. And last year there was a lot of circumstances that very seemingly probably contributed to some of the offensive struggles that Mookie Betts had throughout the course of the season. So this is going to be a big year to see, with an additional year sample size, how his potentially shortstop could be affecting his play at the offensively. And if it is something to where that is dramatically impacting his offensive ability, perhaps looking to move Mookie Betts over to the second base position, finding other solutions at the shortstop position could be something that the Dodgers look to do more or could be looking to do sooner rather than later. I think that's probably the long-term play for the Los Angeles Dodgers, is eventually Mookie Betts is going to be over at the second base position, which is a lot less demanding than shortstop. The question is how soon are the Dodgers going to, much is that potentially taken away from his offensive ability? If he comes back and performs great offensively and plays good defense, there's no reason to rush moving Mookie Betts off the shortstop position. But add an additional year of data to be able to go and analyze is going to help determine what the Dodgers' decisions are going to be going forward.
I will add to that, and it's going to be, do they think they have a suitable replacement? And right now, I think the answer to that, I love Alex Friedman. I think he has a chance to be a very good major leaguer, but he just, on this team that's trying to three-peat, it's so hard to three-peat. I don't think you can responsibly turn it over to somebody with that much lack of experience. The shortstop spot. Now, center field or left field, that's one thing, Yeah. But shortstop, I mean, that's pretty tough. And
it is a pretty demanding position, and you want to be able to provide, especially with some of these prospects, give them and put them in the best positions to be able to go out and succeed and be able to find a path, which is why I find it so appealing with Mookie Betts at shortstop, a platoon versus right-handed pitching, because that's the plus side of the platoon. That's where you're getting a little bit more at bats, and is going to be the best side for an Alex Freeland or a Ha-Seong Kim to get opportunities at second base. They're not going to be expected to be the best hitters, but that's going to provide either one of them with an opportunity to be able to grow at the big league level and potentially take on some of the responsibility. For example, if it is somebody like Alex Freeland wins that position and wins a job on the major league club from spring training, giving him opportunities to be able to see if he can adapt to big league pitching, to where, man, if Alex Freeland is able to showcase that he can hit against big league pitching, we've seen him perform well defensively at the shortstop position, to where if Mookie Betts needed to be able to make that transition, then once Alex Freeland gets acclimated at the big league level to big league pitching, then you can start adding different elements to the game. It's just one of those where, is it immediate type of need? If they absolutely had to, Tommy Edman and Miguel Rojas have flexibility to where they could potentially take over with shortstop, sprinkle in maybe an Alex Freeland or a Ha-Seong Kim who have played shortstop, to where they could make that decision. I don't think they're ready to make that call quite yet. And especially with Tommy Edman coming back from surgery that he had, I don't think they want to make that decision. I don't think they have to make the decision. I don't think that's the best decision, because Mookie Betts proved to be one of the best defensive shortstops in the game of baseball.
Yeah, we have a question. Does Ryan Ward play first base? Absolutely. He played a lot of first base. As a matter of fact, he was a second baseman at Bryant. If you have not checked out our interview that we released about a week ago, he goes through all that. I would love for you to check that out. I always like it whenever the minor league interviews get some views on there. So, yes, Ryan Ward, a lot of infield. As a matter of fact, outfield is what he didn't play until he was a pro. He just became an outfielder as a pro. So, hey, we have another super chat from Tark the Shark. I agree with CNAB. This is the best Dodger channel on YouTube. Thanks, Casey and Austin. Merry Christmas. This is for you, Austin. Your analysis on Teo on Monday was awesome. Your analysis on everything. I will add to that, Tark the Shark, I want to one-up you. The analysis on everything. I listened to it on the way home from Chandler after I'd got done blowing my whistle refereeing. I try not to blow my whistle as much as I can, because that means the clock stops whenever I blow my whistle. I listened to it on the way back, and it was maybe the best show you ever did, Austin.
I appreciate that. I tried to do my best to be able to because with me, I have a little bit of a unique brain. I very much the reason why I'm a statistician in my day job is because I think of a lot of different numbers and try to find different ways to be able to analyze them, because I think the data that we have that is available can be useful for us to be able to predict results, and it also can help ground reality. So I want to do my best to be able to use the data as best as I can, whatever tools that I have, and present it in a way that's going to be going to be good enough for my standards, because I think there are certain elements of what is being described that I don't think is quite to the standard that I necessarily like. If I do that, I'll go ahead and make some adjustments to the data. But I also want to make sure that you guys here at Dodgers Dawgs, part of the Dodgers Data Network, are as informed as possible. So over the show on Monday, we were comparing Teoscar Hernandez to all the other options, because I think what we can get in the illusion of is always assuming that it is greater on the other side. Always assume that other players are better than what we currently have, or they got to be better than what we have. And I want to provide at least a little bit of grounding in reality, understanding that that's not necessarily going to be the exact player that each one of these guys are, but past results really are correlated with what they can do in the future, especially if you take into account a whole bunch of other different variables. It's my job to be able to present that information for you guys, and then be able to do your best to be able to come up with your own opinions.
Yep. 100%. Then our last thing we're getting to, Ryan Ward. I actually asked Ryan Ward about, hey, the frustration of, just sitting there like, what else do I have to do? And then I also asked him the question, which I thought was an important one. Basically, what I asked him was, were you wanting to become a free agent instead of getting put on the 40-man roster, which sounds like a stupid question. But now that he's on the 40-man, now that opens up the 3 minor league option years. And the Dodgers don't have a whole lot of opportunities, so he could be in Oklahoma City for another 3 years, versus if he went and signed in the KBO, he was probably going to sign for about $1 million. Okay, yeah. I'm just going to tell you right now. Yeah. And system possibly for the next 3 years. That's what happened to Ryan Ward. Yeah. So, I asked him, is that something you thought about? And he was very quick. And, hey, maybe it was just, coach speak or whatever, but he was very quick and very, very, to me, very convincing that, no, you know what? Here's the convincing argument he made. I've been in this organization my entire adult career, okay, my entire pro career. I've been with all these same guys my entire adult pro career. It's always been my goal to put on the Dodgers uniform. And so because of that, I'm super excited for this. There's no frustration about any of that. And I'm just looking forward to the excitement of being a Dodger someday. So that's what he said in the interview. I believed him. I've talked to Ryan Ward probably 100 different times. I would know if he was bullshitting. And I honestly came away thinking that he was 100% genuine with that comment he made. And then the last one we're going to get into, great question here. If Rushing is just a catcher and first baseman, why did they try him in left field in AAA? Because they were trying to find a spot where they could find at bats for him. And I think when they watched him out there, they went, you know what? This is going to take a hell of a lot longer than we have the ability to give him at a major league level. I mean, this is going to take 500 games or whatever in left field. And we just don't have the ability. I mean, look at all these outfielders already that we're talking about, the glut of outfielders we have. They just did not have the runway it was going to take Dalton Rushing to become just even a remotely serviceable outfield at the major league level. So I think it is what, you know what, we don't have time to do it. This is what he is. Let's make a role for him where he can help Will Smith stay as healthy as possible. Freddie Freeman's getting older. You never know about the DH spot, that kind of deal. Let's cross all those bridges when we can in the future. I think that's the way that they saw that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly accurate. And my expectation going into this next season, I know there's other people that expect differently, but I'm not really expecting much of anything with Dalton Rushing in the outfield. I think it's going to come pretty exclusively at the catching position and at first base. Then this is going to come where if the Dodgers want to truly keep Dalton Rushing around and develop him, they're going to have to find and convince Will Smith and Freddie Freeman to get time off. I think with Will Smith, that's a little bit of an easier conversation to be able to have. I think you could potentially get, and this is what I've talked about, 60 to maybe 65 games for Dalton Rushing at the catching position behind the plate. That gets him a little bit more than 33% behind the plate in comparison to Will Smith, giving Will Smith in that scenario 95 to 100 different games. I think it's providing enough rest for Will Smith, Freddie Freeman to take some days off as he's getting older. And I know Freddie Freeman probably wants to go for 3,000 hits. He wants to get opportunities to be able to play. But in order to keep his body as healthy as he possibly can, this is going to come from a difficult conversation that Doc is going to have and say, man, we've got a kid, Dalton Rushing. We need to find ways to be able to get him playing time. And we need to, and more importantly, make sure that you are healthy along the way and make sure that you are as rested as you possibly can be. That's where the difficult conversation is going to have, and where you could see Dalton Rushing go from not getting enough at bats to, okay, this is relatively comparable, maybe a little bit less, but fairly close within 15 or so games to what Will Smith is getting behind the plate and the number of games that he's getting. And then you're talking about, okay, this relatively near full time for a catcher for Dalton Rushing.
Yep. That's where I'm at. I'm wearing down here, man. I'm getting tired. It's about 9:20 my time, which means it's 10:20 your time. You're a spring chicken, Austin. So I think it's time to get out here. What a wonderful conversation. I think we've put the Teo trade stuff to bed. I think you've done a great job of running just about every possible angle and scenario on that, and putting that conversation to bed and moving that on to.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen once we put this conversation to bed? We're going to wake up tomorrow morning and Teoscar Hernandez is going to be traded, and then we're going to be talking about, oh man, what did we do with all that analysis that we just did?
Absolutely.
That's what we're going to be trying to do. One more thing, I think you should check the super chat one more time, because we have one more super chat. And
we do. Look at that.
And we can't.
CNAV is awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for not being the TMZ of baseball. You want to read that one, Austin? How about you?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read that. I've got my phone on here with the chat. Thanks for not being the TMZ of baseball. Merry Christmas, Dodgers Dogs, part of the Dodgers Daily Network. That is right. We try to do as best of analysis as we possibly can. It's not always the scoops. It's trying to be look at the roster and trying to give our best analysis as we possibly can. So thank you for your support. Merry Christmas again, CNAB. I can't thank you enough.
Are the Dodgers Dogs the best, Austin?
Man, okay, so this is battling with some of my humbleness right now. I will say that we do as good of a job as we possibly can.
Well, no, I meant the people in the chat.
Oh, the Dodgers docs. Yeah, our chat is absolutely awesome.
I know I'm the best. I just all I got to do is ask my wife, right?
And I can reassure that. It's the Dodgers docs because that's the title of our show. You're saying, oh, it's Dodgers docs. That's what kind of a question and position is that going to put me in? But no,
actually, if I needed security that I am the best, I wouldn't ask my wife. I would ask my two pit bulls. They would secure me on that one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, but the chat, Dodgers dogs, absolutely awesome. I can't thank you enough. They are absolutely the best.
All right, man. So where are you at Friday?
Friday, I think I should be free on Friday. Yeah, Saturday we've got family Christmas, but we're not doing anything on Friday, so Saturday. Friday should be fine.
Yeah, we'll plan on Friday and we'll see how it goes from there. So to all you Dodgers dogs out there, you are the absolute best. CNAV, Tark the Shark, Carlos Garcia. All the super chats. Just let me make sure and go through these one more time. Yeah. Tark the Shark, CNAV, yes, Carlos Garcia, there's CNAV again. Yeah, man, thank you so much for your wonderful super chats. We cannot thank you enough. It is absolutely humbling, the incredible support we get here for Dodgers Dogs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. So thank you one more time from the bottom of our heart. So until next time, which will probably be Friday night, make sure and check out those interviews with the babies. Every lunchtime I'm releasing a new one. I've still got like 10 or 11 of them to get to, so I'm super excited about that. So until next time, thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, it's a great day to be a Dodger.